Great. My last question here is really just about the general public and people that don't understand the world of what's going on in the South China Sea. How does this affect the overall geopolitical conflicts in the world and just the average citizens in the US, Europe, or anywhere in the world?
Well, the thing to remember about the South China Sea, of course, is of great interest across the board because the huge amount of shipping that goes through there. And we're one country to control the whole thing and decide to make that shipping more difficult. It would certainly be able to do so. And China has the capacity to do so over time. We've seen how much having the Houthi rebels launching missiles at ships in the Red Sea has disrupted global shipping. Imagine that, expanded by a factor of 10 when you're talking about a state actor, if they wanted to make that difficult for international shipping.
The same U.S. national defense strategy claims the U.S. seeks to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific, and more specifically, open access to the South China Sea. The report even points out that nearly 2/3 of global maritime trade and 1/4 of all global trade pass through the South China Sea, all while implying China threatens this trade. And this is another misconception people have, is that there's all of this trade going through the South China Sea, and the Chinese are building up their military in the South China Sea to somehow disrupt that. Why is that utterly ridiculous? My article will explain that. However, the US government and US corporations, including from across America's arms industry, fund foreign policy think tanks like the Center for Strategic and International Studies, also known as CSIS, which publish analysis like a 2017 report titled "How Much Trade Transits the South China Sea?" That is right here. And I have covered this many times before, and if you scroll down, there are a lot of visual aids helping explain this. As you can see, this giant dot, that represents Chinese trade going through the South China Sea. You can see all of these other nations who primarily trade with China, and you see the United States and Europe, the rest of the world, not as much. And what little is going through the South China Sea is most likely trade with China itself. This report admits the vast majority of trade passing through the South China Sea comes from and is going to China. The report even admits, this is a quote, "China's reliance on the South China Sea leaves it vulnerable to maritime trade disruptions. In 2003, then President Hu Jintao drew attention to the potential threat posed by certain major powers." I wonder who those certain major powers could possibly be. Aiming to control the Strait of Malacca, and highlighted the need for China to adopt new strategies to address this concern. Clearly, China has no intention of disrupting its own trade in the South China Sea. In reality, just as U.S. General MacArthur pointed out in 1950, the U.S. military presence in the region today is there not to protect maritime trade, but specifically to interdict it.